My sister demanded that I become her full-time, unpaid babysitter. When I refused, she told me it would be better if I were dead.
I never imagined hearing something like that from someone in my own family, let alone from my older sister. Back then, I was living with my parents. I was actively looking for a job, sending out resumes, checking websites, doing online interviews, the usual. It wasn't the life I wanted forever, but I was trying to move forward. My sister, meanwhile, was a single mother of 2 young kids. One was 4 years old, the other just 2. And from the moment she realized I was unemployed, she decided that meant I was automatically available to her 24/7. At first, I didn't mind helping. I love my nieces and nephews. I babysat here and there so she could run errands or go to a doctor's appointment. But what started as, "Can you watch them for a few hours?" gradually turned into, "They're your responsibility now." It got to the point where she wouldn't even ask. She would just show up, drop the kids off, and leave. Sometimes I'd get a text like, "I just left. The kids are already asleep. You can watch them, right?" And by the time I realized what was happening, I had 2 children in my care for the entire evening and night. My routine stopped being look for work and became on-call, full-time, unpaid babysitter. There were days when I was about to submit an important application or prepare for an interview, and she would arrive unannounced with the kids. Between feeding them, changing them, keeping them entertained, cleaning up messes, and dealing with tantrums, I barely had 30 minutes of real focus in an entire day. Whenever I tried to set a boundary, my family's toxic mentality kicked in. Family always helps, no questions asked. If I dared to say I needed time for myself or for job hunting, the response was always, "You're not doing anything anyway. They're just kids, it's not that hard. One day you'll have your own children, and you'll be grateful for this kind of help." The problem was that this wasn't helping once in a while. It was almost every day. It stopped being a favor and became an obligation, at least in their minds. One day, after my sister dropped the kids off without warning for the 3rd time that week, I snapped. I waited for her to come back so I could talk to her face to face. I sat her down in the living room and, as calmly as I could, said, "Look, I love you and I love the kids, but this is not okay anymore. I can help sometimes, but if you want regular childcare, like a fixed schedule, then I need you to pay me. I can't keep spending all my time taking care of your children for free while I have no income and no time to build my own life." Her reaction was instant. Her face turned red, and she looked at me with this mix of anger and disgust. "You're so selfish," she screamed. "You live here for free and you have the nerve to ask me for money to watch your own family?" I tried to explain that it wasn't just a favor anymore, that it was basically a full-time job. I told her I had the right to time, to independence, to a future, but she didn't want to hear any of it. She started throwing more insults. "You've always been useless. That's why no one will hire you. You should be grateful anyone even puts up with you." I hoped my parents would step in, that they would finally notice how unfair this was. Instead, when they got involved, they took her side. "She's a single mother with 2 kids. How can you not help her? As long as you live under this roof, the least you can do is cooperate. It's not like you have something better to do." It felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I was exhausted physically and mentally, and somehow I was still being painted as the bad guy for daring to draw a line. Despite everything, I kept helping here and there, but something in me broke. I was tired, angry, resentful. And then, last week, my sister crossed a line there was no coming back from. We were arguing again because I told her I couldn't watch the kids that afternoon. I had an important interview scheduled. She started with the same tired speech about how I was selfish and ungrateful, and then she looked me dead in the eyes, completely calm, and said, "You're pathetic, a burden to everyone. If you can't even help your own family, it'd be better if you just died because you're useless anyway." She didn't shout it. She didn't say it in the heat of the moment. She said it like she was stating a simple fact, and she said it in front of my parents. I froze. My throat closed up. I waited for one of my parents to say something, anything, to tell her she'd gone too far, to defend me. They said nothing, not a single word. In that moment, something became very clear. I wasn't just being exploited. I was being emotionally abused, and no one in that house was going to protect me. Ironically, that same week, maybe because I finally had a little time to focus, I got a call from one of the jobs I had applied to. They wanted to hire me. It wasn't my dream job, but it was a salary, a schedule, and most importantly, an out. I started looking for a small apartment. Something cheap, something mine, somewhere far away from all the drama. My parents said I was overreacting. They said I was making everything too big, but I knew that if I stayed, it would only get worse. So I left. My first days in the new place were strange, but freeing. Silence. My own space. Messes only when I made them. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my life actually belonged to me. And then, one night, everything exploded again. It was close to midnight. I was getting ready for bed when I heard loud banging on my front door. Not knocking, pounding, like someone was trying to break it down. My heart jumped into my throat. I walked quietly to the door and looked through the peephole. It was my sister. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were wild. Even through the door, I could tell she was drunk. She was yelling loudly enough for the whole hallway to hear. "Open the door, you coward! You're such an ungrateful bitch! Come out and face me!" My first instinct was not to open, but then a horrible thought hit me. What if something had happened to the kids? That fear made me unlock the door, though I only opened it a crack. As soon as I did, she lunged toward me, screaming. The smell of alcohol on her breath was overwhelming. She accused me of abandoning her, of ruining her life by moving out, of leaving her alone with everything. She was so drunk that her words were slurred, but the venom in them was still clear. I tried to interrupt her. "You're drunk. You need to go home. We can talk about this when you're sober." She just screamed louder. For a second, I glanced past her, out toward the street. That's when I saw it. Her car was badly parked, crooked, half on the curb. In the back seat, I could make out two small shapes. My heart dropped. My nephews, 4 and 2 years old, were asleep in the car. She had driven over to my place drunk, in the middle of the night, with her children in the back seat just to scream at me. In that moment, the fear I felt for myself was replaced by fear for them. I told her, my voice shaking, "You have to leave. Right now. You're scaring me. You're putting the kids in danger. You can't be here like this, and you definitely can't drive them like this." She laughed at me, said I always played the victim, that I was dramatic, that everything was about me. She stepped back like she was about to leave, and I started to close the door. Before I could fully shut it, she grabbed a rock from the garden and threw it straight at me. I heard a sharp crack. For a second, everything went white. Then there was this hot rush down the side of my face. I touched my cheek and my fingers came away wet with blood. I stared at her, stunned. She didn't come closer. She didn't say sorry. She didn't even hesitate. She turned around, climbed back into the car, and sped off with the kids still strapped in the back. I was left standing there, shaking, my face throbbing, my hand covered in blood. I started crying, not just from the pain, but from the shock, the anger, and the deep, deep hurt. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I called the police. I told them everything. That my sister had shown up drunk at my apartment, that she had her kids in the car, that she had assaulted me and driven away intoxicated with them. I described the car and the direction she'd gone. Those next minutes felt like hours. Then, in the distance, I heard sirens. One, then another, then another. I knew something had happened. Later, I found out she had crashed just a few blocks away. Thankfully, truly, and I mean that from my heart, the kids were okay. Shaken, crying, but physically unharmed. The car, not so much. And my sister, she was not okay, at least not legally. She was arrested. She's now facing charges for driving under the influence, child endangerment, and destruction of property. When the police took my statement, I told them everything. The midnight visit, the screaming, the rock, the injury on my face, the kids in the car. This time I didn't minimize anything. This time, I filed charges. When my parents saw the police report, when they saw the photos of my bruised and bloody face, when they heard the full story from someone other than me, something finally broke inside them. For the first time, they didn't say, "You're exaggerating." They didn't say, "You should have helped her." They didn't say, "She's just stressed." They were horrified. My mom, who had always excused my sister's behavior with, "She's under a lot of pressure," started crying. My dad, who had told me over and over, "You don't have anything better to do? Just watch the kids," lowered his head and said, "We were wrong. We didn't see what was really happening. We left you alone in this." They apologized. Not a quick, empty, "sorry," but a real one, with tears and trembling voices. They told me I had been right to leave, right to set boundaries, right to file the report. They admitted that I never should have been made responsible for raising my sister's children, that I never should have been insulted, guilt-tripped, and attacked for not wanting to sacrifice my entire life for her decisions. I'm not going to pretend that their apology magically erased everything. It doesn't undo years of feeling like a servant, a free babysitter, the useless one. It doesn't take away the moment my own sister told me I'd be better off dead. But it did give me something I hadn't had in a very long time. The feeling that someone was finally seeing the truth. I still love my nephews. That will never change. They are innocent in all of this. If they ever hear this story someday, I want them to know that I never abandoned them. I stepped away from their mother, not from them. I stepped away from someone who was willing to destroy me emotionally and physically, and who even put their lives at risk, just because I dared to say no. Setting boundaries with family has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. But now I understand something I wish I'd known sooner. It is not betrayal to defend yourself from abuse, even when it comes wrapped in family ties. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have the right to exist as more than a babysitter, more than a live-in servant, more than an emotional punching bag. For the first time in a long time, I know, with absolute certainty, that this was never my fault.